There's a mistake in the terms.
What mistake? Show me.
This clause here voids the whole deal.
Let me see that.
Sign it, Hyung, just sign it. The pen was already in his hand. Kang Jae-ho's fingers were steady, even though blood was dripping from his temple onto the polished mahogany table. The paper in front of him trembled slightly, not from fear, but from rage he was holding down deep in his chest. Across the room, a gun clicked. "Once you sign," the man said softly, "the company collapses, the accounts freeze, the police move in, your men scatter." Jae-ho lifted his eyes. "And my life?" he asked calmly. A pause, then a smile. "That depends on how generous I'm feeling tonight." A crash echoed from the hallway. Someone screamed. 3 things happened at once. The lights went out. Gunfire exploded. And a woman's voice cut through the chaos. "Stop, that paper is wrong." Silence. A single emergency light flickered on. Jae-ho turned toward the voice. She was standing in the doorway. A waitress, black uniform, hair pulled back, eyes wide but sharp. She was shaking. But she didn't run. "That clause," she said, pointing at the contract with a trembling finger, "that clause will get you killed." The gun swung toward her. Jae-ho moved. The room erupted again. Sound of gunshots, glass shattering, footsteps running. And in the middle of the chaos, as bodies fell and alarms screamed, one impossible thought burned through Kang Jae-ho's mind. Who the hell is she? Music cuts abruptly. What if the most dangerous man in Seoul didn't fall because of his enemies, but survived because of a woman who was never meant to be there? What if one mistake, one overlooked sentence, rewrote 2 lives forever? What if love didn't save them, but survival did? This is not a love story. This is a survival story. 2 hours earlier, the cafe smelled like burnt espresso and regret. Aisha hated the late shift. Her feet ached, her back hurt, and her smile, the one customers loved, felt heavier than usual tonight. She wiped the counter slowly, watching the reflection of neon Seoul shimmer in the window. Rain streaked down the glass, blurring the city into something unreal. She had been in Korea for 3 years. 3 years since she ran from Lagos with a single suitcase and a past she never talked about. 3 years since she learned how to disappear. Aisha Sasai. She turned. "Yes, Manager Nim. VIP reservation. Private room, you serve, no mistakes." Her stomach tightened. The private room was never good news. Rich men, dangerous men, the kind who didn't like eye contact but noticed everything. "I understand," she said quietly. She adjusted her apron, tied her hair tighter, and took a breath. Be invisible, be polite, survive the shift. That was always the plan. She didn't know the man waiting inside that room ruled half of Seoul's shadow economy. She didn't know tonight would end with blood on her hands. She only knew one thing. The moment she opened that door, the air changed. Kang Jae-ho sat alone, staring at his phone. The screen showed numbers. Too many zeros. Too many red warnings. Bankruptcy. The word tasted bitter. He had built everything from nothing, from the alleyways of Busan, from fists and loyalty and blood. Now men in suits wanted to take it from him with signatures instead of knives. He preferred knives. "Boss," his cousin Min-yi said from across the table, smiling too easily. "This is just business." Jae-ho didn't look at him. Min-yi had always smiled like that, even as a child, even when lying. "Business doesn't require armed guards," Jae-ho replied. Min-yi shrugged. "Seoul is dangerous." Jae-ho finally raised his eyes. "So are you." The door opened. A woman stepped in, carrying a tray. She froze for half a second when she saw the guns. Just half a second. Jae-ho noticed. Most people froze longer. She lowered her gaze quickly, set the cups down, and spoke softly. "Your coffee, sirs." Her accent was light, foreign. Jai-ho's eyes lingered on her hands. They were steady. That was the second thing he noticed. The third was the scar on her wrist. Old, poorly healed. A survivor. Interesting. Leave, Minyi said sharply. She bowed and turned. But as she moved, her eyes flicked to the open file on the table. Just one glance. Jai-ho saw her pupils change. Recognition. Calculation. Fear. She paused. That was a mistake. Minyi noticed too. Hey, he snapped. Didn't I say? I'm sorry, she said quickly, but her voice caught. That document. The room went still. Jai-ho leaned back slowly. What about it? He asked. She swallowed. She should have left. Every instinct screamed at her to leave. But she remembered her father's voice. Read everything twice. Contracts kill faster than bullets. That clause, she said, pointing despite herself. Page 7, the asset transfer date. Minyi laughed, too loud. A waitress giving legal advice. Aisha's heart hammered. I worked in finance, she said before she could stop herself. Before I came here. Silence. Jai-ho picked up the file. Turned to page 7. Read. Once. Then again. His jaw tightened. Minyi's smile faltered. Explain, Jai-ho said quietly. Aisha's voice shook now, but she pushed through. It says the transfer activates immediately upon signature, not after arbitration. That means the debt defaults instantly. The authorities would. Shut up, Minyi barked. The gun came up. Jai-ho moved faster. Don't, he warned. Too late. Sound of gun cocking. And that was the moment everything shattered. Sound of footsteps running, gunfire echoing. When Jai-ho dragged her into the hallway, Aisha didn't even scream. She ran. Her heart was in her throat, her lungs burned. Her mind screamed one thought over and over. You should have stayed invisible. They burst through the emergency exit into the rain-soaked alley. A car screeched. Shots hit the wall behind them. Jai-ho shoved her against the brick, covering her with his body as bullets sparked inches from her face. Stay down, he ordered. She nodded, shaking. Why did you speak? He demanded, breath hot against her ear. Because it was wrong, she whispered, and because he was lying. Jai-ho stared at her. Even now, even terrified, she was honest. Dangerous trait. He grabbed her wrist. You just saved my life, he said, which means they'll try to take yours. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't ask for this. No one ever does, he replied. Sirens wailed closer. Jai-ho pulled her toward a waiting car. Get in. Where are you taking me? Somewhere safe. Somewhere dark. Somewhere you can't leave. But he didn't say that. Instead, he looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. The most dangerous man in Seoul. And a woman who just ruined his enemy's plan with one sentence. Trust me, he said. She hesitated. Then nodded. The car disappeared into the rain. And somewhere deep in the city, midnight obsession stories was just beginning. Before we go any further, if you're already feeling the tension, the danger, the pull between them, subscribe to Midnight Obsession Stories and turn on notifications. Because this story, it only gets darker from here. The car didn't have plates. Aisha noticed that first. No music, no scent, no personal items, just black leather, tinted windows, and the heavy silence of men who were trained not to speak unless necessary. She sat stiffly in the back seat, hands clenched in her lap, rainwater still dripping from her hair onto her uniform. Her heart hadn't slowed down yet. It kept slamming against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Kang Jai-ho sat beside her. Too close. Close enough that she could feel the heat of him. Close enough to smell gun oil and clean cologne. Something expensive, something dangerous. You can let go, he said quietly. She looked down. She hadn't realized she was gripping the seatbelt so hard her knuckles had gone white. She forced her fingers to relax. I didn't mean to cause trouble, she said. He turned his head slowly. Trouble? The word almost made him smile. You stopped a hostile takeover, he replied. You exposed a traitor. You interrupted a murder. He paused, eyes dark. That's not trouble, that's war. Her throat tightened. I just read what was in front of me. That's more than most men do. The driver took a sharp turn. Soul blurred past the window, neon signs, wet streets, people laughing under umbrellas like the world wasn't ending for someone right now. Aisha hugged herself. Are you going to kill me? She asked softly. The car went quiet. Jai-ho looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Why would I do that? Because I know too much. You know nothing, he said, except one thing. She waited. That someone wanted me bankrupt and dead. She swallowed. That's enough to die for. He studied her face. The fear was real, but beneath it something else, steel. The same kind he'd seen in himself years ago, when he was younger and poorer, and hadn't learned how to hide it yet. No, he said finally, I don't kill people who save me. She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. But, he added, voice dropping, I also don't let them walk away. The safe house was underground. Literally. An elevator hidden behind a grocery store freezer took them down 3 levels, past reinforced steel doors and biometric locks. The air changed as they descended, cooler, heavier, insulated from the world above. Aisha's ears popped. Her fear deepened. When the doors opened, she stepped into a wide concrete space softened by warm lighting and minimalist furniture. It felt lived in, not luxurious, not poor. Controlled. Sit, Jai-ho said, shrugging off his coat. She perched on the edge of the couch, spine straight, eyes darting. He moved like he owned gravity, calm, efficient. He washed the blood from his temple in the sink, barely flinching. You're bleeding, she said before she could stop herself. I've had worse. That's not an answer. He glanced at her in the mirror. You're brave, he said, or reckless. She shrugged weakly. Depends on the day. He wrapped a towel around his head, then turned. Name. Aisha. Family name. She hesitated. Johnson. A lie. Not a good one. He didn't call her out, yet. Nationality. Nigerian. That part is real, he said. Her eyes snapped up. How do you know? I hear accents, he replied, and lies. She looked away. Your turn, she said quietly. Name. Kang Jai-ho. She frowned slightly. You're him. He raised a brow. The man on the news, she continued. The investor, the philanthropist. And the rumors. He waited. They say you run the Black Harbor. Silence thickened the air. That name wasn't spoken lightly. Jai-ho watched her carefully. Fear flickered. But she didn't scream, didn't bolt. She just accepted it. Yes, he said, I do. Her hands shook. She folded them tighter. So you're a criminal. So are most men with power, he replied evenly. The difference is honesty. She let out a bitter laugh. You kidnapped me. I rescued you. From what? From my cousin. The word landed heavy. Min Yi, he continued. He's been bleeding the company dry for 2 years. Tonight was his endgame. And now? Jai-ho's jaw tightened. Now he knows I know. Aisha hugged her knees. And what happens to me? He walked closer. She tensed as his shadow fell over her. You stay here, he said, until this is over. And after? That depends. On what? On whether you want to live. Her breath caught. She looked up at him. What if I don't trust you? He leaned down, face inches from hers. You shouldn't, he said softly, but you will. The air shifted between them. Danger, awareness, something sharp and electric. She looked away first. Later, alone in the small bedroom he assigned her, Aisha sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands. They were still clean. That bothered her. She had been close to death tonight. She should feel different. But all she felt was awake. Her phone was gone, her passport, her bag. Trapped. She lay back slowly, staring at the concrete ceiling. Her mind drifted back, uninvited. A different country. A different room. Her father's voice raised, papers spread across a table, a deal that ruined everything. Men in suits, smiles, fine print. The same kind of mistake. That was why she had spoken. Not bravery. Memory. Tears slid silently into her hair. She wiped them away angrily. Survive. That was always the rule. In the next room, Jai-ho stood with his men. Secure all accounts, he ordered. Freeze Minyi's access, quietly. Yes, boss. And watch her. The men exchanged glances. The girl. She's not a girl, Jai-ho snapped. She's a liability. He paused. And an asset. They nodded and left. Jai-ho remained still. He thought of her eyes when the gun was raised. Not begging. Calculating. Just like his once. He pressed a hand to his chest, annoyed by the unfamiliar tightness there. This was supposed to be simple. Contain the damage. Eliminate the threat. Instead, fate had handed him a woman who saw too much. And spoke anyway. Outside, the rain stopped. Inside, two lives sat on the edge of something irreversible. And neither of them knew yet. That this was only the beginning. Jai-ho woke before dawn. He always did. Violence trained the body to sleep lightly. He stood in the dim kitchen of the safe house, staring at the city feeds on a wall of silent screens. Cameras, streets, buildings he owned without owning on paper. Men who would die if he asked them to. And one woman asleep behind a locked door. She's awake, one of his men said quietly from behind. Jai-ho didn't turn. How long? Since 4 minutes ago. Of course she was. He nodded once, clear the perimeter. The man hesitated. Boss Minyi moved. Jai-ho's jaw tightened. Where? Black Harbor Warehouse, South Docks. Too fast. Too confident. Which meant Minyi thought he had leverage. Jai-ho's eyes drifted to the hallway. Aisha. The liability. The asset. Get the car ready, Jai-ho said, and wake her. Aisha was halfway through, pulling on the oversized hoodie when the knock came. Not a knock. A signal. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps. She opened the door slowly. Jai-ho stood there, already dressed in black, gun holstered, calm as if they were heading to dinner instead of hell. We're moving, he said. Her heart sank. Where? Somewhere you shouldn't be. That's comforting. A corner of his mouth lifted, almost a smile. You'll stay in the car. She folded her arms. That's what you said last time. And you didn't. She met his gaze. You needed me. A beat. Then he stepped aside. Get your shoes. The dock smelled like oil and salt and old secrets. Fog rolled in thick from the water, swallowing lights and mooting sound. The warehouse loomed ahead, a concrete beast crouched at the edge of the sea. Jai-ho watched it through the windshield. Stay, he said again. Aisha looked at him. You're going to walk into a trap. Yes. And you're okay with that. No, he said, but I'm prepared. She hesitated, then quietly opened her door. Jai-ho grabbed her wrist instantly. Don't, he warned. I saw the accounts, she said, breath quickening. The shell companies, the debt transfer. He's not just trying to kill you. He frowned. What do you mean? He's trying to make you the fall guy. If you die here, everything traces back to you. The police, the banks, the foreign investors. She swallowed. Your empire collapses anyway. Silence. The fog thickened. Jai-ho slowly released her wrist. You saw that? He asked. She nodded. I used to audit hostile mergers, she said. This isn't just betrayal, it's execution. Something dark passed through Jai-ho's eyes. Then you stay close, he said, and you do exactly what I say. Her pulse jumped. Yes. Inside the warehouse, the smell of metal and damp concrete pressed in. Footsteps echoed. Min-yi stepped out from the shadows, clapping slowly. Ha-young, he said warmly, you came. Jai-ho didn't raise his gun. You always liked drama, he replied. Min-yi's gaze slid past him. And stopped. At Aisha. Oh, Min-yi smiled. You brought a witness. Jai-ho moved half a step in front of her. She leaves. Min-yi laughed. After what she saw, no. The light snapped on. Guns appeared. Too many. Aisha's heart slammed against her ribs. 3 things happened at once. A gunshot rang out. The lights exploded. And Jai-ho shoved Aisha to the ground as bullets tore through the air. Sound of gunfire, metal ringing, bodies hitting concrete. Stay down, Jai-ho shouted. She crawled behind a crate, breathing hard, mind racing. Men shouted in Korean, orders, screams. She peeked. Jai-ho moved like water, precise, lethal, every shot deliberate. But Min-yi was gone. Jai-ho, Aisha yelled. He turned just as a figure lunged from behind. She didn't think. She grabbed the fallen gun beside her. Hands shaking. Raised it. Pulled the trigger. The recoil nearly threw her back. The man dropped. Silence cracked the moment. Jai-ho stared at her. Not shocked. Impressed. You okay? He asked. She nodded, chest heaving. I warned you, she said weakly. He exhaled a short, dark laugh. Yes, he said, you did. Sirens wailed in the distance. Too close. Jai-ho grabbed her hand. We're leaving, now. As they ran into the fog, Min-yi's voice echoed from somewhere unseen. This isn't over, Ha-young. Jai-ho didn't look back. But Aisha did. And in that moment, she understood something terrifying. She wasn't just caught in his world anymore. She had chosen a side. And there was no going back. Before we go any further, if your heart is racing right now, if you're already pulled into this dangerous connection, subscribe to Midnight Obsession Stories and turn on notifications. Because from this point on, love won't just be risky. It will be deadly. The safe house this time was higher. Above the city, instead of buried beneath it. Glass walls, steel beams, a view of soul glowing like a living organism beneath them, beautiful, dangerous, indifferent. Aisha stood near the window, arms wrapped around herself, watching traffic snake through the streets far below. Her reflection stared back at her in the dark glass. Pale, wide-eyed, not the woman she had been yesterday. Behind her, Jai-ho checked the perimeter. Locks, cameras, blind spots eliminated. Only then did he speak. You disobeyed me. She didn't turn. You're alive. Because I planned for contingencies. You didn't plan for me, she replied quietly. That made him stop. The room hummed with tension. Slowly he walked closer, not threatening, not gentle either, just present. You fired a gun, he said. Do you know how many people can't pull the trigger even when their life depends on it? Her fingers tightened against her sleeves. I didn't aim to kill, she whispered. I aimed to stop. He studied her profile, the way her jaw trembled now that the danger had passed, the delayed fear. You still saved me, he said. She turned then. Don't say it like that, she snapped. Like it was nothing, I shot someone. You shot a man, who would have put a bullet in my spine. That doesn't make it disappear, she said, voice breaking. I can still feel it, the kick, the sound. She hugged herself tighter. Jaiho hesitated. Touch was not his instinct. Distance was. But something about the way she stood there, brave only because she refused to fall apart in front of him, pulled him forward. He reached out, stopped inches from her shoulder. Look at me, he said. She did. Her eyes were glassy but fierce. You're shaking, he observed. So are you, she shot back. That surprised him. He hadn't noticed. He lowered his hand. You should rest, he said. I don't think I can sleep. Then sit. She eyed the couch like it might explode. They sat at opposite ends. Too far. Too close. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken things. Finally, she spoke. You said this would be over. I said it depends. On what? She demanded. He leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. On whether Minyi thinks you're useful. Her stomach dropped. So I'm bait. He turned his head slowly. No, he said, you're leverage. She laughed once hollow. That's supposed to make me feel better. It should make you feel valuable, he replied. In my world, that keeps you alive. She studied him. You're calm, she said, too calm. I don't panic, he replied. That's not what I meant. He waited. You don't look like a monster, she finished softly. The words hung between them. He should have shut that down. Instead, he answered honestly. Neither did my father, he said, and he taught me how to kill. Her breath hitched. I'm not asking you to understand me, he continued. I'm asking you to survive. With you. Yes. She looked away, jaw tight. I don't belong here. No, he agreed, you don't. That was worse than denial. Then why am I still here? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. Because when he did, it would be the truth. Because you see what others miss. Because you're not afraid of power. Because you stood between me and death. Instead, he said, because if you leave, Minyi will find you before sunrise. Fear flared in her chest. How do you know? Because he already tried, Jaiho said. She froze. What? He picked up his phone and turned the screen toward her. A photo. Her cafe. Taken less than an hour ago. Lights on, police tape at the door. Her breath left her in a rush. They questioned the staff, he said, asked about you. Her knees weakened. She sat back heavily. I have nowhere to go. Yes, he said quietly, you do. She looked at him. Here. The word echoed in her mind like a prison door closing. Or opening. Night deepened. Jaiho brought her food she barely touched, water she sipped mechanically. At some point, exhaustion claimed her despite her fear. She drifted on the couch, body curled inward. Jaiho watched from across the room. He should move her to the bedroom. He didn't. He stayed where he was. Guarding. At some point, her breathing changed, shallow, uneven. A nightmare. She whispered something he couldn't understand. No, Baba. Her hands clenched in the air like she was drowning. Without thinking, Jaiho crossed the room. He knelt beside her. It's okay, he said quietly, unsure why the words came. You're safe. She jolted awake with a gasp. Her eyes locked onto his. For a second, she didn't know where she was. Then she did. And her walls snapped back up. I'm sorry, she murmured, embarrassed. I didn't mean to. You don't have to apologize, he said. She hesitated. Then asked the question she'd been holding back. Why are you really protecting me? He looked at her for a long moment. Because I see myself in you. Because you remind me who I was before I chose this life. Because if I let you get hurt, something in me won't survive. He stood. Get some sleep, he said instead. Tomorrow will be worse. She watched him walk away, heart pounding for a different reason now. The danger hadn't faded. It had simply changed shape. And the space between them, once filled with fear, was now charged with something far more dangerous. Morning came without mercy. Aisha woke on the couch, stiff and disoriented, the city already alive beyond the glass walls. For one disorienting second, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered everything at once. The gun. The warehouse. The way Jai-ho had looked at her after she pulled the trigger. She sat up quickly. Her blanket slid to the floor. He was in the kitchen. Shirt sleeves rolled up, hair still damp like he'd showered minutes ago. Calm, focused, as if men weren't hunting him across the city. "You didn't sleep," she said. "I rarely do." He poured hot water into 2 cups. "You should eat," he added. "You'll need energy." "For what?" she asked. He carried 1 cup to her, set it down carefully. "For the truth." Her chest tightened. She wrapped her hands around the mug. The warmth grounded her. "Okay," she said quietly. "Start talking." Jai-ho leaned against the counter. "You already know the surface," he said. "Min-yi is my cousin. He's ambitious. He wants my position." "That doesn't explain why he tried to erase you legally before killing you," she replied. A flicker of approval crossed his face. "Good," he said. "You're still thinking." She didn't smile. "Jai-ho," she said. "People are dying. I need more than fragments." He exhaled slowly. "The Black Harbor isn't just crime," he began. "It's logistics, shipping, laundering, political favors. It's old money pretending to be new. And you run it." "I control it," he corrected. "There's a difference." She studied him. "You sound like you believe that." "I do," he said, "because if I didn't, I'd be no better than Min-yi." Her jaw tightened. "And where do I fit into this?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he picked up a tablet and handed it to her. She frowned and looked down. Her own face stared back at her. Passport phode. Old. Her breath caught. "You said you took my things for my safety," she whispered. "I did," he replied, "and then I verified who you are." Her fingers trembled as she scrolled. Immigration records. Employment history. A sealed Nigerian court document. She stopped. "That file is supposed to be private," she said, voice barely steady. "It was buried," Jai-ho replied. "Someone wanted it hidden." Her heart began to pound. "Who?" He met her gaze. "Min-yi." The room tilted. "No," she whispered. "That doesn't make sense." "He didn't find you by accident," Jai-ho said. "He's been tracking financial analysts who disappeared after exposing offshore fraud. You were one of them." She dropped the tablet onto the couch like it burned. "I didn't disappear," she said. "I ran." "And he followed," Jai-ho replied. "Not immediately, slowly, patiently." Her breath came faster. "He destroyed my father," she said. "His company collapsed. He died thinking it was his fault." Jai-ho's eyes darkened. "It was." She looked up sharply. "He was set up," Jai-ho continued. "The same structure Min-yi tried to use on me." Her legs gave out. She sat heavily. "So this was never random," she whispered. "The cafe, the contract." "No," Jai-ho said. "You were a variable he didn't expect to activate." Tears burned her eyes. "I came here to disappear," she said, "to survive." "And you did." He replied, "Until last night." She laughed bitterly. "I should have kept my mouth shut." "No," he said sharply. The sudden force in his voice made her look at him. "If you had," he continued, "I would be dead, and you would still be hunted, silent or not." He stepped closer. "This ends when Min-yi is finished." "And what about me?" she asked. "When this is over?" His gaze held hers. "That depends on what you want." She scoffed. "You really think I have a choice?" He leaned in slightly. Yes, he said, but not yet. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Jaiho's phone buzzed. Once. He looked at the screen. Minyi. Jaiho answered without hesitation. Hyung, Minyi's voice purred. Did you like my message? Aisha stiffened. What message? Jaiho asked calmly. The one waiting for your little analyst. Jaiho's eyes flicked to Aisha. Check your email, Minyi continued. Old habits die hard, don't they? Her hands shook as she opened her phone. One unread message. No sender name. Just a subject line. You should have stayed invisible. She opened it. Photos loaded. Her childhood home. Her father's office. The courtroom. And then, a live camera feed. The cafe storage room. A man tied to a chair. Her manager. Alive. Barely. A strangled sound escaped her throat. Don't, Jaiho warned, already moving. But it was too late. She was crying. Tell her the rules, Minyi said cheerfully. She comes alone, midnight, Pier 17. No, Jaiho said coldly. If you interfere, Minyi continued, he dies, slowly. The line went dead. Silence filled the penthouse. Aisha slid down the wall, hands over her mouth. This is my fault, she sobbed. Jaiho crouched in front of her instantly. No, he said firmly. This is his mistake. She shook her head violently. I can't let him die. You won't, Jaiho said. She looked up. How? Because you're not going alone. Fear and hope collided in her chest. That's what he wants, she whispered. Jaiho's expression hardened into something lethal. No, he said quietly. What he wants is to underestimate us. The truth had finally been spoken. And it had changed everything. The war was no longer about power. It was personal. They didn't move for a long time after the call ended. Aisha sat on the floor, back against the wall, knees pulled to her chest. Her tears had stopped, but the ache stayed, deep and tight, like something wrapped around her lungs. Jaiho stood near the window, phone in his hand, staring at the city. Midnight was hours away. Too close. Finally, he turned. We won't go to Pier 17, he said. She looked up sharply, but he'll kill him. He expects me to follow his rules, Jaiho replied. That's his weakness. You said I have a choice, she said quietly. This is it. He walked to her and crouched down, so they were eye level. No, he said firmly. Your choice comes after you survive tonight. Her voice broke. He's not even part of this. Everyone is part of it once Minyi decides they are, Jaiho said. That's why I end this. She searched his face. Not for lies. For certainty. She found it. Okay, she whispered. Tell me what to do. They prepared in silence. Not the tense kind. The careful kind. Jaiho cleaned his gun at the table, movements smooth and practiced. Aisha sat nearby, watching without fear now, only awareness. He handed her a phone. Encrypted, he said. One button, you press it, my men come. She nodded. And this, she asked, pointing to the earpiece. You'll hear me, he replied. Only me. That made her pause. Why, she asked. Because when things go wrong, he said, you'll trust my voice. Something softened in her chest. He wrapped a small bandage around her palm, where the recoil had bruised her skin. His touch was gentle. Deliberate. The air shifted between them. I'm not afraid of him, she said suddenly. He looked up. I'm afraid of losing myself again. Jaiho stilled. Again. The word lingered. You won't, he said quietly. How do you know? Because you still feel, he replied. People like him don't. She swallowed. And you, she asked, do you still feel? He didn't answer immediately. Then, honest and low, more than I want to. Their eyes held. The city hummed around them, unaware. Later, the lights dimmed. They sat on the couch, close now, not touching, but aware of every inch between them. Jai-ho rolled his shoulders once, testing an old wound. "You're hurt," Aisha said. "It's nothing." She reached for him without thinking. Then froze. "Can I?" she asked softly. He hesitated, then nodded. She moved closer, fingers light as she pressed against the bandage under his shirt. Her touch was warm. Human. He exhaled slowly. "You don't flinch," she murmured. "I learned not to." "Who taught you?" "My father," he said, "and the streets." She traced the edge of the bandage carefully. "You carry too much alone." "So do you," he replied. Their faces were close now. Too close. The world narrowed. For a moment, the danger faded. Just breath. Heat. Unspoken want. He pulled back first. "We should rest," he said. She nodded, disappointed and relieved all at once. As she stood, she paused. "Jai-ho." "Yes." "If tonight, if something happens." He met her gaze. "Nothing will," he said. She stepped closer and surprised them both by resting her forehead briefly against his chest. Just a second. Just enough. "Thank you," she whispered. "For protecting me. For believing me. For not letting me disappear." He didn't move until she walked away. Near midnight, Jai-ho stood alone again, staring at the city. His phone vibrated. A message from Minyi. Tick-tock. Jai-ho deleted it. Tonight wasn't about reacting. It was about ending. Behind him, Aisha slept lightly, unaware that the calm she felt was the most dangerous part of all. Because storms didn't announce themselves. They arrived. And when they did, nothing was ever the same. Pier 17 smelled like rust and salt and bad intentions. Aisha felt it the moment she stepped out of the car. The night was colder than she expected. Wind sliced through her jacket, carrying the metallic tang of the sea. Floodlights from nearby docks flickered on and off, casting long, broken shadows that shifted like they were alive. Jai-ho's voice came through the earpiece, low and steady. "Stay where you are. Don't move until I say." Her fingers brushed the phone in her pocket. "I see the warehouse," she whispered. "Good. Do you see anyone else?" She scanned the pier. Crates, chains, water slapping against concrete. Then movement. "Yes," she said softly. "Two men, left side, near the doors." "I see them," Jai-ho replied. "Breathe." She did. In, out. Her heart still pounded, but she stayed upright, focused. This wasn't fear anymore. It was resolve. Inside the warehouse, Jai-ho moved like a shadow. His men were already in position, spread across rooftops and loading platforms, weapons trained, waiting for his signal. But Minyi wouldn't make it that simple. He never did. Jai-ho's phone vibrated once. A text. "She's early. I like that." Jai-ho didn't respond. He kept moving. Aisha took a step forward. The warehouse door screeched open. Light spilled out. Minyi emerged, smiling, hands raised theatrically. "Aisha Johnson," he said, voice smooth and amused. "You came." She forced herself not to flinch. "You said you'd let him go," she replied. "And I will," Minyi said, "after you come inside." She hesitated. Jai-ho's voice cut in sharply. "Don't." Minyi laughed. "Ah, he's listening. Good." He snapped his fingers. Two men dragged someone forward. Her manager. Bruised, bloody, alive. Aisha's breath caught painfully in her chest. "Please," the man croaked weakly when he saw her. Minyi leaned close to him, smiling. "She has such a kind heart," he said, "just like her father." Rage flared through her fear. "You used him," she said, voice shaking with fury. You ruined my family. Min-yi shrugged. He signed what was put in front of him. Aisha stepped forward before Jai-ho could stop her. Let him go, she said. I'm here. Min-yi's smile sharpened. Inside, he repeated. The moment she crossed the threshold, everything went wrong. The lights went out. Not flickered. Out. Darkness swallowed the warehouse whole. Gunfire erupted. Shouts in Korean. Metal screamed as bullets hit steel. Aisha down, Jai-ho shouted in her ear. She dropped instinctively as hands grabbed her from behind. Rough. Vast. A cloth pressed over her mouth. Her vision blurred. She kicked. Elbowed. Bit down hard. Someone cursed. The cloth slipped, but strong arms wrapped around her, dragging her backward. No, she screamed. Pain exploded at the side of her head. The world tilted. Her last clear thought was Jai-ho's voice, raw with fury. Aisha. Sound of a gun firing once, twice, screaming. When Jai-ho reached the center of the warehouse, there was blood on the floor. But not hers. Min-yi stood on the upper platform, gun in hand, eyes wild. You're late, Hyung, he said. Jai-ho raised his weapon. Where is she? Min-yi laughed, breathless. You really care. 3 things happened at once. A sniper's shot shattered a light above Min-yi's head. Jai-ho fired. And Min-yi jumped. He disappeared through a side exit as alarms began to wail. Jai-ho's men secured the area quickly. But Aisha was gone. Jai-ho stood in the center of the chaos, chest heaving, eyes scanning every shadow. Boss, one of his men said carefully, they took her. Jai-ho's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. For the first time in years, fear cut through his control. Not for himself. For her. Aisha woke to darkness and pain. Her head throbbed. Her wrists burned. Rope. She tried to move. Couldn't. A single light snapped on. Min-yi stood in front of her, clapping slowly. Impressive, he said. You lasted longer than expected. She spat blood at his feet. Coward, she hissed. His smile vanished. You think Jai-ho will save you, Min-yi said softly. That's adorable. He leaned close. But men like us. He tapped her chest. We destroy what they love. Tears welled in her eyes despite her strength. Min-yi straightened. Enjoy the wait, he said. He'll come. The door slammed shut. Aisha was alone. Tied. And for the first time since this began, Jai-ho wasn't there to protect her. Sound of door echoing shut, silence stretching. Far across the city, Kang Jai-ho stood over a map, eyes burning. They took her, he said quietly. Every man in the room felt the shift. This ends tonight. And somewhere in the darkness, the line between survival and obsession finally disappeared. Jai-ho didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. When he said, "Find her," the room moved. Screens lit up, phones rang, doors opened. Orders flowed out of him like blood from a wound that refused to close. Min-yi had made one mistake. He took something Jai-ho loved. And love, when sharpened by violence, became something far more dangerous. She's alive, Jai-ho said quietly, staring at the live traffic grid. He wants me to come. One of his men hesitated. Boss, this is personal. Jai-ho turned slowly. His eyes were cold. Yes, he said, that's why it ends. Aisha counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3. Her wrists were bound behind her to a steel chair bolted to the floor. The rope cut into her skin every time she moved. The room smelled of fuel and damp concrete. She didn't scream. Screaming wasted oxygen. She listened. Footsteps above, voices, a generator humming. This wasn't the docks. This was inland. A warehouse repurposed, temporary. Minyi never stayed still long. She shifted carefully, testing the knots. Too tight. Her phone was gone. The earpiece, too. But not everything had been taken. Her fingers brushed against something taped beneath her sleeve. The panic button. Jaiho's voice echoed in her memory. You press it, my men come. She pressed. Nothing happened. Her heart stuttered. Then one short vibration. Hope flared, sharp and dangerous. 3 things happened at once. Jaiho's screen lit up with a silent signal. A Black Harbor convoy blocked every road within 3 kilometers of the warehouse. And Minyi realized, too late, that he was no longer the hunter. Jaiho moved through the outer perimeter like a storm. Gunfire cracked the night. Men fell. Orders were shouted, then cut short. Jaiho didn't slow. Every step burned with one thought. Alive, she has to be alive. Inside the building, alarms screamed. Minyi cursed, backing away as his phone buzzed nonstop. Find her, he shouted. Use her. A guard rushed in. She activated something. Gunshot. The guard dropped. Minyi turned toward the room where Aisha was held. Too late. The door exploded inward. Smoke filled the air. Jaiho stepped through it. Gun raised. Eyes locked on Minyi. Silence fell like a held breath. Hayoung, Minyi said weakly, backing away. Listen. Jaiho didn't answer. He fired. The shot took Minyi's shoulder, spinning him into a metal railing. Minyi screamed, collapsing. Jaiho crossed the distance slowly, deliberately. Not rushing. Not merciful. This was never about money, Jaiho said quietly. You wanted my life. Minyi coughed, blood on his lips. No, he gasped. I wanted your loneliness. Jaiho's jaw tightened. Where is she? Minyi laughed weakly and pointed with a shaking hand. Jaiho turned. The chair. The ropes. Aisha. Her head lifted. Their eyes met. She was bruised, pale, but alive. Jaiho crossed the room in 2 strides and dropped to his knees in front of her. I'm here, he said, voice breaking for the first time. I've got you. Tears slid down her face. I knew, she whispered. He cut the ropes with shaking hands. The moment she was free, she collapsed into him. He wrapped his arms around her instinctively, shielding her with his body. Behind them, Minyi dragged himself toward a gun. Aisha saw it. Jaiho, she shouted. Jaiho twisted, fired once. The gun skidded across the floor. Minyi froze. Breathing hard. 3 things happened at once. Police sirens wailed closer. Jaiho's men secured the exits. And Jaiho stood, pulling Aisha up with him. He walked Minyi to the edge of the loading platform. You wanted me empty, Jaiho said calmly. Now you are. Minyi sobbed, clutching his wound. Please, he whispered. We're family. Jaiho leaned in. You stopped being family when you chose her. He stepped back. Minyi slipped. The fall was short. The impact was final. Sound of a body hitting metal, silence. The police arrived minutes later. By then, Jaiho and Aisha were gone. They sat in the back of a car, wrapped in blankets. Aisha leaned into him, trembling now that it was over. He held her like she might vanish if he let go. You came, she whispered. There was never a world where I didn't, he replied. Her fingers tightened in his coat. You said this would end. He pressed his forehead to hers. It did, he said. Outside, the city continued breathing. Inside the car, 2 survivors held onto each other as if the world had almost swallowed them whole. And for the first time, the danger was behind them. Or so it seemed. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and calm. Too clean for what they had survived. Aisha lay propped against white pillows, a thin blanket pulled up to her chest. Bruises bloomed along her arms and neck, ugly fingerprints that would fade but never fully disappear from memory. Jaiho sat beside her bed, not standing guard, sitting, still, like if he moved, the moment might break. A nurse finished checking Aisha's vitals and gave Jaiho a long look, the kind that said she knew exactly who he was and exactly what he'd done. "She's stable," the nurse said quietly. "No visitors, 10 minutes." She left. The door clicked shut. Silence filled the room. Aisha turned her head slowly. "You didn't leave," she said. "I won't," he replied. Her lips trembled. That almost did it. She looked away quickly, blinking back tears. "They said I'll be okay," she murmured. "Physically." He nodded. "They're right." She let out a shaky laugh. "You're bad at comforting people." "I was never trained for this part." She studied him. The bruising on his knuckles, the faint cut at his brow, the exhaustion carved into his face. "You should be dead," she said softly. "So should you." They shared a quiet breath. Then it all came crashing down. Aisha's shoulders shook. When he closed that door, I thought I'd never see you again." Jaiho stood abruptly and crossed to her bed. He sat on the edge, close now, close enough that she could feel the heat of him again. "You will never be alone like that again," he said. She looked up at him. "You can't promise that." He swallowed. "I know," he said, "but I'm still going to try." Her tears spilled freely now. She pressed her face into his chest. He froze for half a second. Then his arms came around her. Tight. Protective. Not letting go. She cried quietly against him, the way people do when they finally feel safe enough to break. "I didn't want this," she whispered. "I didn't want any of it." "I know," he said, his voice rough. "I pulled you into my world." "No," she said, lifting her head. "You didn't, I stepped in." That mattered. He saw it in her eyes. Choice. "I don't know who I am after this," she continued. "I don't know if I can just go back." "You don't have to," he said. She pulled back slightly, searching his face. "What are you saying?" He hesitated. This was harder than any gunfight. "I'm stepping down," he said finally. Her breath caught. "What?" "Not disappearing," he clarified, "but changing the structure. The violence ends with me." She stared at him, stunned. "You do that because of me." "No," he said honestly, "because of what I almost lost." Her hand slid into his. He didn't pull away. "I'm not asking you to stay," he continued. "I'm not asking you for anything." "Then why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't want you to think I'm choosing you instead of my world," he said quietly. "I'm choosing to be better so you can choose me freely." Her chest tightened painfully. "That's not fair," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Love rarely is." She squeezed his hand. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I." She looked at him then, really looked. The most dangerous man in Seoul. And the man who held her like she mattered more than power. "I don't want to run anymore," she said. His breath stuttered. "I don't want to disappear." "Then don't," he replied. "Stay." The word hung between them. "Stay." She leaned in, slow and deliberate, giving him time to stop her. He didn't. Their lips met gently. Not desperate. Not hungry. Soft. Real. When they pulled back, their foreheads rested together. "I'm choosing you," she whispered. Jaiho closed his eyes. For the first time in years, something inside him loosened. Later, as dawn crept into the room, Aisha slept peacefully. Jaiho stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. "Everything is in motion," his man said. "The transition will be clean." "Good," Jaiho replied. "No more blood." He ended the call and looked back at her. Alive. Choosing him. Before leaving, he leaned down and brushed a kiss against her hair. and whispered a vow only the quiet could hear. This is the last war. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the fear, the pull, the healing, subscribe to Midnight Obsession Stories. Share this story with someone who believes love can survive even the darkest nights. And comment below your favorite moment. Because some obsessions don't destroy you. They save you. 2 years later. The sea was calm that morning. Aisha stood barefoot on the wooden deck, coffee warming her hands, watching sunlight stretch across the water. The waves moved gently now, no anger, no urgency, just rhythm. Behind her, glass doors slid open. Jai-ho stepped outside, sleeves rolled, no gun at his side. He looked different these days, still dangerous, still intense, but the sharp edges had softened. The man who once ruled the night now moved like someone who had made peace with the dark. "You're thinking again," he said. She smiled without turning. "You always notice." "I had to learn," he replied. "You disappear into your head." She finally faced him. "I was remembering the docks," she admitted. "How loud everything was. And now." She gestured to the sea. "Quiet." He crossed the deck and stood beside her, their shoulders brushing. "We earned this," he said. She nodded. They had. After the night Minyi fell, Seoul changed for both of them. The Black Harbor dissolved quietly. Assets sold. Men retired or vanished. Jai-ho testified where he could, buried what needed to stay buried, and built something new from the ruins. Logistics companies that moved goods, not weapons. Money without blood. It cost him power. It gave him freedom. Aisha went back to school. Not because she had to. Because she wanted to. She taught now. Finance, ethics, the kind of details that saved lives if people paid attention. Sometimes she told her students, "Read every line. Silence is how they win." They never knew how literal that was. Jai-ho reached for her hand. The scar on her wrist was still there. So was his on his chest. Proof, not pain. "Do you regret staying?" he asked quietly. She looked at him. At the man who once pulled her out of gunfire. At the man who learned how to be gentle. "Not for a second," she said. He exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that breath for years. A phone buzzed inside. Jai-ho ignored it. Some habits were worth breaking. Aisha leaned into him. "You know," she said softly, "if I hadn't spoken that night." He shook his head. "No," he said, "you were always going to speak." She smiled. Because he was right. That was who she was. They stood together as the sun climbed higher. No sirens. No shadows. Just the quiet hum of a life chosen, not stolen. Before they went inside, Aisha turned to him one last time. "Promise me something. Anything. If the darkness ever comes back." He met her gaze. "We face it together." She nodded. That was enough. As the doors closed behind them, the world kept moving. Somewhere, another city woke up. Another woman stood at a crossroads. Another story waited to be told. And here, in this quiet corner of the world, love didn't arrive as salvation. It arrived as a choice. A choice made again. And again. And again. If you stayed until the end, share this story with someone who believes in second chances. Comment below the moment that stayed with you. And subscribe to Midnight Obsession Stories. Because some nights change everything. And some loves survive the dark.